All right, everybody. This video is going to cover user input. Now, up to this point, we can create some print statements, display some things on the screen, do some simple math, which is what we covered in one of our last videos. We can print that math. If I want to change any of the numbers, I can go in there into the code and change the numbers, run it again, and I'll get a different result. Now, the downside to this is, if I want to make any changes, I have to go into the code and change the code, recompile the program, and then run it again. If you don't remember, we have this source code, this Englishy code. I hit play up here, and it compiles. Basically, it translates it to something the computer can understand. If it says everything's good there, the language makes sense, it'll create an exe file. And that exe file is what actually runs and displays on our little prompt. So as long as I put all my little numbers and stuff in right, it'll do what it's supposed to. But your average person is not going to be able to go into the code and do all that. They want the program to run, and if they need to change something, they can click on something or type it in maybe, and then it changes. Our program, they would have to literally open up the code, recompile it, and rerun it. Which is not something your average person would want to do. So we're going to talk about user input. I'm just going to create another project again. And again, whatever the date happens to be, I always put the date in front of it. And then I'm just going to say intro input. And I'll create it. And I already have some other stuff up, so I'll just save that. And here we go. And nothing, there we go, kick back up. Do my using name, namespace, st. And I can get rid of this and make a couple of little spaces here. All right. User input for C++ is relatively straightforward. We have cout to print things, right? So cout. We have these two little less than signs here after that. Then I just say, type in your name, for example. That would print on my screen. I would run that and you would see type in your name. There it is. Pretty simple and straightforward. Now, if I wanted someone to type in a name so we could save it, let's see here, string name, I can use cin. Oh, it's just going to jump around there for a second. There we go. Now, cin, your little signs here are the other way. So it would be greater than sign. So in this case, I can pick a variable for this to go into. Name is what I created up there. And I'm going to do another little line here. Hello there. Just doot name. All right, if I did this correctly, and I probably should, let me just go ahead and throw in just a line break in the middle here. That way I have a little extra space here. And all this is just line break. I could put it up here if I wanted to, but I'm going to put it right here. So what I'm hoping this will do is ask me to type in a name. I type it in, and it's going to save it into this variable. Whatever I type in gets put into name. And then I'll give myself an extra space so it's not all one line. And it should say hello there, whatever my name is that I typed in. So let's give this a quick run. All right, here we go. Type in your name. Look over here. Let's go. I'll press enter. And it returns it back to me. So at this point in my program, what's happened is this cin, or as I call it, cin, and these little greater than signs here, tell it to go to the prompt and wait for someone to type something in. When you type something in, it gets plugged into here. Now, since I'm typing in a string, I could generally type in anything here. I can run this, and if I type in 57, I'm not sure why it's taking so long to do something here. There it is. If I typed in 89, for example, it's going to take it in as a string. It's literally going to be like 89. So it's not a number if I do it that way. I can take things in as a number if I want to. Int age, for example. Cout. Type in your age. Cin. And I'm just going to say age. That's what's going to go there. And I'll just add this to again, just so we have a little space. There we go. And I will print another one. If it will stop doing that. There we go. You are, and I'm just going to say age, and just space that out a little bit. Years old. All right, well, we'll have a slightly elongated here string. So let's see. I'm going to run this. So I've got an integer, and I can type in my age to go with my name. So let's take a quick look. All right. Type in your age. I didn't put another little line after that, so 10. And there it goes. It did what I wanted to do. So I can get rid of that. Maybe add another little line break in here. And there are a couple ways we can do this. I'll show you a few other ways later, but I'm just going to do it this way for now. I could add in, if I wanted to, here, instead of having a whole line about it. There we go. Not to be confused with that. It's this way. So if I do that, I don't actually need that there. And I can just put it here as well at the end of this. It's just going to basically press enter. Now, what happens if I do this? We run our program. There we go. Zoom in. I type in, I don't know, Wilbur. And then for the age, I type in Bob. Now, keep in mind, Bob is not a number, right? Bob is a string. So I'm going to press enter, and what's going to happen is it's going to try and put Bob into this integer here. You are 0 years old. Well, Bob is apparently 0. It didn't actually put in the number correctly there, right? In Java and Python, that would crash immediately. In C++, it obviously didn't put the number in there correctly. I guess it just defaulted to 0. I'm not completely sure. Let's try this one more time. I want to see one thing. Let's just go with, again, Wilbur. I'm just going to type in a big A. You're still 0 years old. Okay. So it doesn't really seem to matter what I do. It's still coming out as 0. It's not crashing, at least. But sometimes crashing can let you know where an error is more than not. In Python, this would crash and it would tell you that you're trying to put a string into an int, and it would not like that. In C++, it's obviously saying, hey, that's not right, so instead of crashing, I'm just going to put a 0 there. But that kind of, you can see it's wrong, but it doesn't really tell you where the thing is going wrong at. So I would argue that in C++, that's actually a little bit harder to fix. Well, anyway, this is essentially how your input and output would work. And of course, I could still do some math. I can ask them to type in a double, for example, and I just simply have to have a double up here. Money, for example. Now, here's a question. Could I say cin and then just say int p? Would that be allowed? Well, that should tell you real quick that no, it's not. We need to kind of define it before we try to use it in this little input section here. Well, actually, yeah. See, it's complaining and complaining. So, generally speaking, we want to have our kind of variables lined out first, and then we can actually use them for this. Other languages, it varies and depends on the method you're using for the most part. But this is the rough idea of how input works. You have your variable, you type it in, and it goes into whatever slot you deemed it to go into. Now there are some checks we could do. Like I could check before I put anything in there. Is what they're typing in a string or a number, or is it within this range? But we're not at that point yet where we're checking, so we're just going to assume that people are going to do it right for now. We're more interested in being able to do this than being able to correct it right now if there's an issue. We will worry about errors and correcting it once we get a little bit more advanced and actually have the tools to do that. So this is your quick rundown on user input. By the way, this right here, input-output, allows for the input-output that we're using here. So you shouldn't have to do anything inside of C++. If you've done other languages, Java, you have to import some stuff. Even Python does have a couple of things that have to be imported sometimes. I think just general input and output aren't one of those, though. So it's kind of nice that you don't have to do too much extra just to get this off the ground. But there will be a couple of times where we will have to do some stuff. I haven't really mentioned what these are, so I guess I should just do that now. Including iostream. That allows me to use these right here. If I were to just, get rid of that for some odd reason, you'll see several things start malfunctioning. It doesn't know what they are. This right here is basically telling C++, I'm going to use the cin, cout. There's actually a little package built into it. The way most languages work is they don't use every possible thing that you can use when they're creating and compiling. If you look at any program, they have things called API, Application Program Interface, and it lists everything you can do with that program, from displaying graphics to music to whatever else you want to do, just displaying text and simple stuff. But it has everything listed there. Now, if it had to actually check and see if every one of those things was there every time you compiled something, it would take forever. So almost all languages go with the bare minimum that you need to run, which is kind of what we got here. If I want to display graphics or do some other stuff, I'm going to have to include those little packages so it knows what they are. Because it doesn't check them by default. That's essentially what that is. And almost every program will just automatically include that. And it should include the using namespace, I think, just for ease of use here. You don't have to. You can just have the std like that, and it will still function fine. So it doesn't really matter. You can take that off and leave that on, or you can add it and so you don't have to write as much. But it's not a difficult thing to do using that or not. Now, again, I hope you enjoyed the little tour through your basic user input here, as well as some little explanations of how some of these other things work. If you have any other questions or problems, just let me know.